Billy Porter here, and in this video, we're going to be covering the first module, essentially, other than the introduction. And so, what I really wanted to start with here is family stuff. So this will set up perfectly for the next module, which is going to be about mental health and basically how to be happier, how to control your emotions, how to just be a better human being, and kind of manage yourself as a person. But this, to me, like family has always been the most important thing for me, and I think there's a lot of basic work and foundational work that we need to do within this, which will set us up for the next thing. And so, in the last couple of years, I've really, really improved my relationship with my family to where my relationship with my sisters, with my parents, with my extended family is better than it's ever been. And that was by focusing on the things that I'm going to cover in this. It's something that I struggled with for a while. I always used to argue with my mum. My relationship with my dad wasn't that deep, and to be honest with you, I think my sister didn't like me probably for a while, and it was very much justified by the way that I was acting, being selfish, and lots of other things that I did. So, with all that said, let's get into this. So, the number one thing that you need to do is heal your childhood trauma, which sounds like a bit of a woo-woo thing and a bit of a general statement, but ultimately, you may not know this, but a lot of the actions that you're taking right now, and a lot of the anger or arguments that you're getting in, or the way that you're interacting with other people, is all based on your subconscious programming, essentially, and whether it's fear or whatever it is within you that's causing you to act this way. So the first thing that you need to do is understand your emotions. So what I did with this, like I've become, I would say, pretty good at self-coaching, through, first of all, like journaling about my thoughts and being able to kind of stop those things. So I've dealt with a couple of bouts of with clinical depression, like had to take medication, regular like counseling, all that stuff. And what I really have now, I've got a bit of perspective on it, like what I understand that process to be, at least for me, with my depression, was just a negative thought spiral. So being able to understand where you're at in that negative downwards thought spiral and stop it, is really what's key to this, and kind of understanding where your actions are coming from. So even recently, beginning of this week, perfect example, I was very, very angry. I'm not really sure. I wasn't really sure at the time what was happening. I was just really angry at the world, really angry at myself, really angry at like other people, even my family as well, to be totally transparent with you. And so I had to start asking myself some questions, and not kind of feed into those thoughts. So I started journaling for sure about why do I feel like this? What am I angry about? Who am I angry at? Etc. And what it came down to was really being angry at myself, which is typically where a lot of this comes from. Like, obviously, there's real things. People can do stuff that pisses you off. You might get in a car crash by someone being stupid. There's real situations where people piss you off, but it's your choice how you react to those things. And so for me, really the thing was, I just wasn't happy with where I was at in life right now. I wasn't happy with how work was going. I wasn't happy with the bad habits that I picked up, like eating shitty food, not going to the gym, and being as committed as I have been in the past with the gym. And so what I really had to do was address those things. And so the work situation, I had to really get clear on what it is that I actually want, not play the victim, which is something that definitely is a childhood trauma for me, something that I continue to do. We're going to talk about later in this, kind of those dynamics within your family, and that's definitely something that I probably picked up from my mum a little bit, and was just a coping mechanism generally. Like, things didn't go my way, whether it was like making friends in school, whether it was like my ice hockey career, whether it was my early business career, or just career in general. Like, I would just play the victim. I'd say, I'm in this situation because they've treated me like this. They're not giving me the opportunities that I need. I'm better than this. And I would just basically play the victim, which is not a good place to be, because there is no solutions in that. And if you blame everybody else, you're going to continue to run these patterns, run these like trauma cycles where you never really get out of it, because you're just continuing to do it. And even this is something I have to fight now. Like, even the situation at the moment, with the work situation that I'm in, I was blaming other people and saying, like, they're not doing this, they're pissing me off, they're doing these things. But really what it comes down to is that I have a choice to make. They're going to do whatever they want to do. That's their life. That's their truth. And so it's up to me to manage the situation, have conversations, give people feedback, and also just understand that the situation that I'm in is entirely based off my actions. And so, essentially, what we want to do here is journal on exactly the emotions that you're feeling. So whether it's anger, like it was for me earlier in the week, whether it's sadness, loneliness, and just understand where they're coming from. And so the question I will normally pretty simply ask myself is like, where is this coming from? Like, why am I so angry right now? And just follow that down within myself by writing it down as just where is this emotion actually coming from? There'll be the surface stuff, like I said, being pissed off at family or being pissed off at certain ways that I was treated. But below that, there is an underlying current of like where this emotion is actually coming from. And then that's when the self coaching comes in. Of obviously, first of all, the coaching question of like, why am I feeling like this? What's creating this emotion within me? And then when it comes to creating solutions, what do I need to do to fix this? What can I do? What's the one thing that I can do today to make myself less angry, or to just to let go of that emotion, which is typically what needs to happen. You know, that's why meditation is super important, because it teaches you to just let go of those emotions, let go of the way that you're feeling, and just kind of treat them as clouds passing by, which they often are. So even a couple of days later, I feel way better, way clearer, and able to even make this video, because the mental state that I was in on Monday and Tuesday of this week, I would not have been able to make this video and be in any kind of helpful state. So the last thing is family dynamics. I kind of mentioned that with kind of the way that my parents act. You can often see within your family there will be dynamics like this. One book that's really great that I learned a lot of this stuff from is the Celestine Prophecy, which I don't think I've added as a supplementary reading here. I think it's in the spirituality section, but even so, that's a great book for you to read. There's lots of personal development principles in there. It's kind of agnostic in the way that it doesn't describe any of these principles and assign them to a religion. It's kind of just spirituality in general, but it talks a lot in there about family dynamics, whether it's playing the victim, whether it's being like the aggressor. That's something that I can do as well and flip into, which is just being kind of like a bulldozer is the way that I've described it, which is like, especially at work, being like, well, fuck you, I'm doing this is what's happening. You can just kind of get out of the way, essentially. So that's also not helpful, but really you want to just understand from observing your parents, observing like your siblings, observing even your grandparents as well, and just understand the dynamics between them, understand how they act when they lose control of their emotions, what is happening for them, and just understand it. So, like I mentioned, I'm very similar to my mom. I'm super stubborn. I can get angry. I can like lash out, and we're both Cancerians as well. So I think that doesn't that adds into it. But from understanding and just observing her, I've learned a huge amount about myself and about what I need to do to kind of fix it and be a more emotionally intelligent person. So I definitely think there's been some situations in the last week I've been really proud of the way that I've acted. In the past, I would have flipped out and just lost control and just said something that my family wouldn't have liked and I would have regretted in hindsight. So yeah, the family dynamics is a big one. I would recommend definitely the two books that we've got here on this specific topic. Both of them go into kind of like the family dynamics, setting boundaries with your family and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of that one. And then next, we're going to talk about, which is a huge subject, both of these books, which is setting boundaries. This is something that I was shit at and still working on it, which is you definitely don't want to be selfish and just say no to everything. But the more you mature as a person, you will have to not put yourself in situations where you know you're not going to enjoy yourself and just kind of do it for the sake of it or do it to people please. So even recently, there was a situation. I've got some old friends. They wanted to go on a night out. In the past, I would have just said like kind of YOLO, or I need to make the most of my life. Like, let me go out with these people. But really, when it comes down to it, and I really do some self-reflection, they aren't people that I'd want to spend time with. I'm not drinking alcohol at the moment, so that wouldn't be a situation that I'd want to put myself in. And it's not like that for other people, but for myself personally, like I'm a pretty quiet, introverted person, and so if I don't drink, I tend to be pretty quiet and not a huge amount of fun to have around on a night out. I think I'm fun to have around any other time of day, but not in that situation. So I said no to that situation, and that was perfect for me. And then in other situations, whether it's emotional stuff, even with my mum, like I said, we used to argue a lot in the past, but now I'll be like, hey mum, totally get where you're coming from. Understand it. Like I'm getting a bit emotional right now. Can we just take a break and talk about this later? Which is hugely valuable because whether it's work or even personally, if I get a message from somebody that triggers me, or I find I'm having an emotional response to, what I won't do is reply in that instant. What I'll do is leave it at least an hour let myself cool off, and then the reply that I give to that person is going to be way more thought out and just way more productive. That's really, really worked for me. Something I learned from my good friend Yusuf, who does that all the time. And I found just the way I interact with people, especially over messages, is way more productive when I can just give myself some time to cool off and not just react purely from that emotion. So when it comes to setting boundaries, that's a lot of things. Whether it's physical space, whether your family want to visit you all the time and you at your own place, or they want you to visit them all the time, and you can say, hey, it doesn't work for me this weekend. I've got friends that I need to speak to, or I've got work I need to take care of. That's not going to work for me. This really comes from people. It's more important. It's important for everybody, but it's even more important for people that do have that people pleasing kind of mentality, which again comes back to a childhood trauma. If you didn't receive the love that you felt you wanted, whether it's from your family, from your friends, or from partners, etc., that's going to be something that potentially comes up for you, and something you will need to manage and protect your energy. Like I've said there, by not just doing things to people please, not just saying yes to every favor that gets asked of you. It's really important that you give as much as you can, but at the end of the day, you can't fill a cup from an empty cup. So you need to make sure you're full, you're in a good place, you have what you need before you start to give to others. So that's something that's super important. Again, those two books will cover when it comes to setting boundaries and the full scope of what that looks like within those. So I definitely recommend that you pick those two books up. I'd probably start with How to Do the Work by Nicole Lepera, because that goes over a lot of this stuff and some of the things that we'll cover in the mental health chapter. So next is define your values. So this was something that was really important to me, and I will add some additional resources in here as far as defining what your values are, because I think for most people it'll probably be a little bit esoteric and hard for you to do it if you haven't seen an example or what other people's values would look like. So what this comes down to is essentially the boundaries thing again. It's like if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. So you really need to be clear on who you are as a person, the things that you value, and basically how you want to live your life. So that when opportunities come up or things come up, like the drinking alcohol thing, like I said, that's not something I really want to get involved with. The only time I really drink alcohol or beer is with my dad. And so that's what my values is. Like any other time, if it's a night out or there's other stuff, I'm just not interested. I'm not going to drink at home because doesn't align with my values or where I want to go in my life, business wise, personally. So where this really comes from as far as defining values, like you might have been at a company and they have like core values or company values, and often those can be a bit esoteric and kind of not really understood. But essentially, you want to do the same thing for yourself and treat your life like a business and understand what are the elements that are important to you. How do you want to act? How do you want to be as a person? And so essentially in the beginning where these came from was looking up to people I admire. So please don't make fun of me, but my first like mentors of people I admired were like fictional characters like Harvey Specter, or even like Bradley Cooper's character in Limitless. There were people that they dressed great, they were successful in their like career and business, and people looked up to them, like they were admired, and they were to me like the perfect image of what like a masculine man should be. So that was where you start. Now I've kind of matured a little bit. I still look up to Harvey Specter a lot. David Ogilvy is somebody who I'd probably say is the one person that I admire the most. I'm in advertising. He ran one of the biggest advertising companies in the world. His personal values, even just the way he conducts himself, and how ethical he is and moral he is something I really look up to. So that's someone, and then even kind of Grant Cardone as well is somebody that I look up to. So really, you need to define these for yourself. Family's always been important to me. So anybody that I look up to or admire or take my values from is going to need to be in great physical shape. They're going to need to have a great relationship with their family. They're going to need to be like a cool person to be around, very like articulate and intelligent. And then obviously success in business or career is important to me. I've met people and I've had mentors in the past that are super successful in business, but they don't have it dialed in when it comes to their family or their health. And when you pick somebody to look up to or a mentor, you will take on a lot of their traits, and you should be in a situation where you can copy everything from them. So really, you don't want to be picking people that have had 7 divorces and their life's a shit show. You want to be picking people that are in alignment with where you want to be and are the kind of person you want to be. in the future. So I'm 27 now. I still have people that I look up to. This isn't something that you just need to do when you're like 16 to 18. Obviously, I did do that at that time, but it's something I continue to do and continue to find people to look up to that are further ahead than me or embody my values even more than I do. So again, I'll have put some resources in the description of this video as far as defining your values. And then the next thing is pay into the relational bank account. So this is something I didn't really understand for a while, and I think I was just kind of thinking that the relationship would take care of itself. But there's lots of little things that you can do for your friends that and for your family that will kind of pay into that bank account. So again, this isn't at the cost of setting boundaries. This isn't at the cost of your own health, financial or otherwise. But this is something that you need to continue to do, whether it's spending quality time, like spending quality time with my dad, like no phone, like just watching ice hockey or just having a conversation about podcasts we've listened to or whatever. That's something that I'll do, and I'll spend that time, and that's paying into the relational bank account, as opposed to just spending time with him and I'm on my phone or I'm working or I'm doing other shit and I'm not fully present. The same thing, like for me, it's always been a kind of a love language of mine, like gifting people books or just gifting people things that I like think about them for. So that's another thing that does that and lets people know that I'm thinking of them. And then I always try and be the first person to check in and say, if we haven't spoken to my friends or I haven't spoken to my mum or dad for a while, just say, how are you doing? How's this week going? Etc. So you want to be constantly paying into the relational bank account with people, and that goes a huge way. And then the second thing, so this is something more on the friend side than on the family side, but something that I've had as a personal philosophy, and I don't know exactly where I picked this up from, but I definitely got this advice from someone else. Is making the first move. So whenever I make a friend, like whether it's they give you a couple examples recently to make this real, I'll always try and make the first move to kind of solidify that friendship. So the first example that comes to mind is there was a guy at the gym. There was a competition coming up that we were kind of doing as a team. I sent him a message in the kind of group chat with everybody that might want to do the competition, saying, "Hey, buddy, like if you're up for it, let's do this competition together." The second thing as well, I have a good friend who lives in Northern Ireland who I work together with, Lee, who's a great friend of mine. And when we started to become good friends, like I offered first to fly over to Northern Ireland, go and see him, spend the weekend with him. And that's something that kind of solidified our relationship. So rather than me sitting there and waiting and going, oh, I'm going to wait for him to come to me or wait till the next time he's in the UK and we could try and meet up, like make that effort, make the first move. And that will be the way that you solidify friendships and make great friends by making the first move. So super, super important there. And then the last point that I want to make here, because it fits better into this section than into the mental health section, which is probably one of the best bits of advice that I've received and something that I continue to think about and try and keep at the forefront. Whenever I get angry or pissed off or whatever the fuck's happening. So is don't make others wrong. So this is something I think probably comes a bit more with my personality style, which is that I think the way that I do things is the correct way, which is absolutely not true, as you'll probably realize even just from me saying that. And so whether it's my family, it's very easy for me to pass judgment on my family, my sisters, whatever, and go, you're living life wrong, you're not doing it right. Let me like bash you over the head with personal development. You should be reading books. You shouldn't be drinking alcohol. You should be going to the gym. You should be doing certain things financially. You should be spending your time in X way. Well, that's what they're doing, what's right for them. I'm doing what's right for me. It doesn't mean that what I'm doing is right just because it works for me. So whether even in business, there's been a lot of people that I've disagreed with, a lot of people that I've thought like they're not doing things the right way. And ultimately what it comes down to is they're not wrong. They're living their truth. They're doing what they think is the best course of action. And so as long as I do that and don't make them wrong and pass judgment on them, I'm going to be a much happier person. So that was something that was really, really important for me. We'll cover in the next topic a little bit, which I'll call like essentially accepted reality, but it comes into a very similar vein where you can't wish for things to be different than they are. You can't wish for people to be different than they are. For the longest time, when I first discovered personal development, like I said, listening to podcasts and doing all these things that improve the quality of my life, made me a happier person, made me more successful. I wanted to kind of bash my dad over the head with it, or even my mum over the head with it, and say, you know, quoting them all the time, sending my dad stuff to listen to, buying him books to read. And at the end of the day, it didn't really work because nobody likes being told what to do. That's the reality of it. And so what I found is the best way as far as that, because you might be in a similar situation where you want to improve your friend's life, your family's life, your girlfriend's life, whatever it is. And the only way to do that is to lead by example. And when they see the success that you're having, when they see that you being a happier person, when they see you taking care of your family, being less emotionally reactive, um, taking care of your family, your sisters, whatever it is, and having and creating better relationships for yourself, that's something that they can get on board with, and then start asking you, which is a much better um, situation to be in. If they start asking you for advice, oh, hey Billy, how did you get like this? I had the same thing, especially with getting fitter in the gym. There's people I'd give to advice to in the past, but when they came to me and they were like, hey Billy, I saw that you're in amazing shape right now, you're doing this weightlifting, you're doing X, how can I get like that? And then I started to give them advice. So I had to go through a stage where I told myself and made a pact with myself that I wouldn't give anybody unsolicited advice, for that exact reason, that it's not as powerful when you're issuing edicts and telling people how to live their life, because they don't essentially aren't going to accept it in most cases. So you're much better to have someone ask you. So that's the last bit on this. And then for the supplementary reading, definitely read How to Do the Work by Nicole Lepera. First, she's a holistic psychologist, which I'm always big for everything being as holistic as possible and not kind of like nitpicking, or not nitpicking, not like cherry picking things to study. And so that book was great. And if you're somebody that is not happy with your emotional intelligence right now, not happy with your general overall happiness and mental health, that's going to be a great book for you to start on, essentially how to do the work on yourself, the personal development work, to be a happier human being, to be more emotionally regulated, to have better relationships with your family, to have a better relationship with yourself at the end of the day. And then obviously if you have a partner, to do that better as well. So if you have any questions on any of the stuff I've covered in this video, please let me know. Obviously the values bit is probably the bit you'll probably need the most help with, as far as defining those for yourself. Like I said, there'll be the resources in the description, but if there's anything else in this video you didn't understand or you want me to go deeper on, please let me know and I can just make another video or respond to you directly. And yeah, hope you're doing amazing, and I'll speak to you soon.